Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1065, 1065. March the 7th, 2020, Saturday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's go ahead and get right to it. Okay, so yesterday we had a report out that, and this was on Gateway Pundit, that Crowdstrike is now finally admitting that they did not do any investigations around the release of the information, meaning that they had nothing to do with the assessing that the Russians gave the emails to WikiLeaks. They had nothing to do with that assessment. Well, that's a big problem. That is a big problem. It's a big problem because it's the Crowdstrike report that the Mueller investigation, the Mueller report, states as their evidence that the Russians hacked the DNC and gave the hacked emails to WikiLeaks. So if Crowdstrike is now claiming that they did not confirm that the Russians gave emails to WikiLeaks, then who did? You see, the more you dig into the Mueller report, the more lies you'll find. And this is why I was happy to hear about 2 months ago that Durham's investigation has now moved into looking at the Mueller investigation. And obviously what brought that about was when Durham realized that the FBI knew in January of 2017 that the dossier was bunk, and likely that whole thing that went down with Downer and Papadopoulos wasn't on the up and up either. And so now he's looking in at the Mueller investigation. And so now we can clearly see that, and this was all brought about because of a magazine article written by a company or individuals raising questions about Crowdstrike and their credibility. And so in an effort to respond to the criticism of their credibility, Crowdstrike responds. And in the response, this is what they say. In other words, they're distancing themselves from this idea that they were the ones who proved that the Russians hacked the DNC and provided that to WikiLeaks. Now, it's a fairly complex article with a lot of details and a lot of technical stuff, and you can read it for yourself and try to, sort that out. It's a little bit complicated. But the most important thing to take from this article and from this statement by Crowdstrike is they are distancing themselves from being the ones who proved that the Russians gave the information to WikiLeaks. But that's clearly what's in the Mueller report. Now, we all knew this. We all know this is bullshit, and we've known it's bullshit for a very long time. And now I wonder at this point if Durham's actually going to look into Crowdstrike. Clearly, he's looking into the Mueller investigation because of he knows that Mueller came in, took over Operation Crossfire Hurricane, and pursued forward with that investigation when he knew, had to have known, that had all been debunked 4 months earlier. So why did he do it? So maybe in the process of going through the Mueller report, it's possible that Durham could begin to question Crowdstrike. And the thing is about the Durham investigation is, where does it end? Because every door that Durham opens, it leads him into a hallway with 100 more doors. You know what I mean? It never ends. I mean, you could be investigating this for 100 years. This is why I said months ago that at some point Durham is going to have to draw the line. I mean, you can't continue to follow every single breadcrumb because it'll never end. It's such a massive conspiracy going off in so many different directions with other conspiracies. I mean, the whole Crowdstrike conspiracy, it's a whole conspiracy to itself. The WikiLeaks, the hacking of the DNC, that's a whole different, set of conspiracy it's associated with the Trump coup, but it gets into a whole other area. And with all the other things that there is to look at some point you have to draw the line. So I'm not sure how far Durham is going to go into this, but clearly he's discovered at this point that, like everything else he's probably stumbling onto, this too stinks to high heaven. And you have to remember that, Durham, I mean, he must be pulling his hair out. He's probably never seen such a contorted investigation as the one he's engaged in right now. And he's seen a lot of investigations. But, think about it. I mean, he begins this investigation. He's investigating Crossfire Hurricane. He finds out that they opened the Crossfire Hurricane on July 31st of 2016, based on the fact, from a tip from the foreign ambassador, Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, saying he had a conversation with Papadopoulos, an unpaid Trump campaign employee, who mentioned something about the Russians having dirt on Hillary Clinton. And that, based on that, they open up a counterintelligence investigation into the Trump campaign? And what did they do after they get this tip? Well, they open up the counterintelligence investigation, and then 2 or 3 days later, Peter's been stroking us, and Priestap and 2 other people go to London, and they meet with several people, including Alexander Down the Hatch Downer. But they don't get around to interviewing Papadopoulos for 4.5 months. Now think about it. You're the FBI. You get a tip from this ambassador saying, yeah, I had this conversation with this guy in a bar, and he mentioned that the Russians have dirt on Hillary. Whoop-de-doo is what most people would say. The FBI was, who doesn't have dirt on Hillary, right? But no, they launch a counterintelligence operation into the Trump campaign before they ever go interview Papadopoulos, which is the very first thing that would come into your mind is, really? This Trump guy tells you that the Russians have dirt on Hillary? How does he know? Where did he learn this? The very first guy that you're going to interview may be Downer, just to confirm that his report is true, but the very next guy, and probably very, very soon, you're going to go interview Papadopoulos to say, where did you hear that? At which point, and we know that Papadopoulos told them, I heard it from this guy Misfid. And where did he hear it? Well, he says he got it directly from the Russians. The target of the counterintelligence investigation at that point should have been to go directly to Mifsud, and it wouldn't have been hard for the FBI to find him. He's connected to every Western intelligence agency on the damn planet. He's associated with the State Department. He comes to the United States on a regular basis and takes part in these meetings and these seminars. Not a hard guy to find. But yet, they don't get around to interviewing Papadopoulos for 4.5 months, and when they do, he becomes the target that they use in their investigation. For what reason? He's just a guy who heard something from Misfid. Now, of course, we all know the obvious answer to this question is because they knew all this. The FBI didn't have to go investigate Papadopoulos because they knew about Papadopoulos. They knew he was the guy that Misfid planted the dirt on. They're quite aware of all this. But think about it if you're John Durham and you're meticulously going through this investigation to the origins. And you say, okay, where is the origins of this investigation? Operation Crossfire Hurricane, July 31st, 2016. Okay, starts here. It starts because this foreign ambassador sends over a tip that he's having a conversation with Papadopoulos in a bar, and Papadopoulos says, yeah, I hear that the Russians have some dirt on Hillary. Now, keep in mind, Papadopoulos himself says he doesn't recall having that conversation with Downer. But be that as it may, at that point, Durham's got to be going, okay, so as a prosecutor, what's the next thing that you would do? Well, okay, I would go want to find Papadopoulos and find out who told him that. But that's not what they do. They go to Downer. Okay, maybe they just want to confirm what he said in his wire, in his telegram, is actually true. Confirm it. Okay, I can understand that. But the very next guy that they should be interviewing is Papadopoulos. And that interview should have been nothing more than, where did you hear it? And he would have said, Misfid. Misfid. Oh, yeah, Misfid, yeah. Here's his email. Here's how you can contact him. He's all over the place. He was probably in London when they interviewed Downer. Or else he was in Italy. That's where he spent most of the summer of 2016. And they got the FBI office there in Italy. They could have interviewed him there at Link University. Or they could have interviewed him in London. He was probably one of those two places. They certainly could have found him. But they don't get around to even being interested in interviewing Misfid until February, after they interview Papadopoulos. And then they don't seem to have any interest in where Misfid got this information. We don't even know if they ask. You know why? Because they don't seem to be able to have any 302s on Misfit. The very guy that is the source for the government's case that the Russians had dirt on Hillary, the guy who's the source of that, they don't particularly have any interest in him. They don't have the 302s. Yet he's the guy who appears all through the Mueller report as the guy who provides the information. And they seem to be no interest in him whatsoever. So if you're John Durham and you're a prosecutor and you're looking at that right away, the red flags are everywhere. I mean, everywhere. You have to be going, holy smoke. What in the world were they doing? And this is what I mean. I mean, and then he finds out that the FBI had basically proven that everything in the dossier was garbage in January of 2017. Yet they go ahead and appoint a special counsel for what? Russian collusion? They just proved that it was all a hoax. So yes, obviously Durham is going through this investigation, and he's probably mortified at what he's learning. I mean, all the lying to the FISA court, lying in statements to everyone, basically, the public, the country. Their entire investigation, the entire Mueller investigation is surrounded by lies, built on the lies that they inherited from the Operation Crossfire hurricane investigation, which was all predicated on lies. And then they say, well, you know, the investigation started and nothing was happening before that. When we know that there was a lot of things going on before July 31st, 2016. So, like I said, Durham at this point, he must be, you know, mortified at what he's finding. He probably has never seen a more corrupt investigation in his life. So I think it's only, you know, natural to assume that as he's going through this Mueller stuff, he gets to the part of the, you know, the Russians hacking the DNC and giving this stuff to WikiLeaks. Durham's automatically right at the top of his head going, yeah, well, that's probably bullshit too. Everything up to this point that I'm finding has been total bullshit. This is probably bullshit too. So whether or not he'll dig into that, or how far he'll dig into that, or whether he'll even draw conclusions, or whether he'll just throw up his hands and go, geez. You know, it's at some point we just got to draw the line here. So it's hard to say whether or not Durham is going to dig into that. But I mean, I don't know why they just don't go to Julian Assange and solve the problem immediately. Go to Assange and say, you know, or even Dana Rohrabacher. But Assange is the man. Assange can prove whether or not it was a state actor, whether it was the Russians, or if it was someone else. Very simple. If you want to get to the bottom of it, that's the man you want to talk to, is Assange himself. Not because you're going to take his word, but because he can actually show you the original files. And if he wants to protect his source, he can do that. He can just black out the name of the source. It doesn't matter who the name is, per se, just the fact that he can prove that it didn't come from a state actor or from the Russians. So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Durham obviously doesn't leak anything, but we know he has to be, as he's going through this, he has to be just, you know, in a state of disbelief at everything he's finding. So if he finds, and he gets to the part of the Mueller investigation, which is predicated a lot on this narrative that the Russians hacked the DNC and gave the stuff to WikiLeaks, I'm sure Durham looks at that and goes, yeah, right. I'm sure that's probably bullshit too, like everything else. Everything that I've looked at in this entire investigation is total bullshit, total lies, total fraud. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see Durham take a look at it. But again, at some point he has to draw the line. But it is interesting to see CrowdStrike, and it's not the first time that they've distanced themselves from the Mueller report. This is just, you know, it's happened before with them, and they realize that they don't want to get drug into this. But that's a pretty clear statement that they're making to say that they had nothing to do with assessing the Russians, making the assessment that the Russians gave the emails to WikiLeaks. Especially since the Mueller report cites CrowdStrike as their source for making that accusation, which they made to a federal judge in a federal court filing and put it in the Mueller report and presented it to the American people with a $30 million price tag. Unbelievable. Well, Burisma Joe likes to say that there wasn't a whiff of corruption during the Obama administration years. Well, of course, we know that's total bullshit. Probably the most corrupt administration in history, and I think that the facts will bear that out when Durham comes out and starts laying charges on people. But we don't have to wait for that, because check this out. Yesterday, Obama acting Homeland Security Inspector General and his subordinate were indicted on 16 counts of theft and fraud. Charles Edwards and Murali Venkata were indicted on charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and theft of government property and destruction of records. Essentially, they stole government software and databases, and this crime began in 2014 and ran through 2017. So here is another left-wing former Obama administration official, a couple of them here, that are being indicted. So I don't know if you're keeping track, but there are definitely people that are going down, you might say. So there are people going down. So the idea that they're not going to indict former Obama administration officials is pretty much not holding water, because it's been happening. I think we've reported now on probably a half a dozen former Obama administration officials in the last couple months that have been charged with these things. Now, this is pretty nasty stuff, because the reason that they were stealing this software and these and this database information, they were going to resell it. They were going to resell it to somebody, and my guess is China. That's my guess. So there you go. They'll be looking at some serious time. And it's just another example of how corrupt the Obama administration was. So, and we don't even know exactly, because it hasn't been released, if someone's got it, what Phil Haney had. But apparently, according to a couple members of Congress who tweeted about it, including Louis Gohmert, who gave us a speech on the House floor, Phil Haney had dirt on former Obama administration officials in regards to wiping out the names of people in the Homeland Security database who were Muslims, who were members of the Muslim Brotherhood, and were connected with radical Islamic terrorists. And he was going to name names of some fairly heavy players, probably fairly high up. And this would probably go all the way up to the Attorney General. Probably Eric Holder, Lynch, Obama himself, probably directing that. So apparently someone has these documents. They haven't popped up yet, but there's people suggesting that what Phil Haney was working on, that someone has that information. It just hasn't been revealed yet. So maybe they're trying to figure out the best way to do that. I don't know. But I certainly hope it does come out for his benefit. So anyway, yes, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of things to keep track of here. And I think that the big shoe is going to drop here in the not too distant future. Okay, so we now also have Trump is now suing CNN. So he filed a lawsuit against New York Times 2 weeks ago, files a lawsuit against the Washington Post last week, and now he's got a lawsuit against CNN, once again, over the false and defamatory statements about seeking Russia's help in the 2020 election. So you can see that the Trump campaign is not holding back. They're actually going after these people, and the reason is because they know it's going to happen again. And they want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And this is certainly one way to put the pressure on them. It will shut them up in the meantime. And when these lawsuits finally play themselves out, maybe they'll get a settlement for millions of dollars. They certainly should. And yeah, so it's going on the counterattack. And I'm glad to see the Trump campaign doing this. You got to fight back against these people. Devin Nunes is doing it. And this is the only way. You got to drag these people into court, because it's not going to be fixed through the Department of Justice. It's going to get fixed in the court system, in the civil federal court system. So that's the way to handle it at this point until things turn around or things change in the swamp. Now, yesterday we had both Pelosi Galore, Madam Botox, and Rachel Madcow coming out and claiming that misogyny is what forced Hiawatha out of the race. Misogyny. No, it's not misogyny that forced her out of the race. And even if it is, what are they saying? That the Democrats are misogynist? Because it's a Democratic primary. Republicans weren't voting. It's a Democratic primary. It's Democrats who didn't vote for the black folks. It's Democrats who didn't vote for the females. That's why they have two old white guys. Democrats. So I assume that Pelosi, Galore, and Madcow are basically saying that Democrat voters are misogynists. That's what the statement would indicate. But it's not that at all. It has nothing to do with misogyny. It has to do with the fact that Elizabeth Warren herself was like the crazy librarian. The crazy librarian. And she lied her ass off. Got caught lying time after time after time after time. She was a weak candidate. And that's why she lost. She hung around a lot longer than she should have. And she got farther than she should have because she stole Bernie's platform and then turned around and tried to reword it and try to position herself somewhere between Bernie and Biden. And there's no lane there. There's no lane there. I mean, there isn't one. And she found that out. Well, it looks like Trump has added another 273,000 jobs in February. On top of the, 220-something from last month? He's a job-creating machine. I'm telling you, I don't know how the Democrats run against that. I really don't. For all the bullshit and propaganda they're going to throw against the wall to see what sticks, at the end of the day, when we get to a month out from the vote and the debates happen and people start thinking about it, these incredible job numbers are really going to have a major impact, and they're just not much that the Democrat candidate, whoever it is, quid pro quo Joe, and I don't think it will be. I think it'll be the rotten Reverend Clinton. But whoever ends up being the Democratic nominee, you simply can't contest the numbers. They are what they are. Well, it looks like Midwit Willard Romney is going to vote in favor of the subpoena seeking the documents regarding Joe and Hunter Biden and Burisma. Romney obviously knuckled under, and my guess is he cut a deal of some sort, and Ron Johnson probably said, yeah, we're not going to focus on you and your buddy Cofer Black. You know, this is focused on Biden and other people, so yeah, we'll keep you out of it. Besides, these documents are not going to be released to the public. These are just for us, for our research. Our focus is on Biden and Burisma, not you. So don't worry, Mitt. But on the other hand, if you don't want to vote for it, then we will talk about your friend and your association with Burisma. How about that? That's probably how that went down. Well, we have the rotten Reverend Clinton. Of course, her big Hulu film comes out. I think the release is, I think it's next week. One day next week. I'm not sure which day, but one day next week is the big rotten Reverend Clinton Hulu release, Hillary. Now, in this documentary, amongst other things, she says that she is the most investigated innocent person in America. The most investigated innocent person in America. Really? No, I think Trump's the most investigated innocent person in America. You know, and that's a joke. I mean, that's actually hard to believe that she would say something like that. Everyone knows it's a lie. That's the good news. The rotten Reverend Clinton can run that claptrap, but you know, the die is cast for the rotten Reverend Clinton. Okay, she can't change what everyone knows about her, no matter how much propaganda, how many movies, how many documentaries, how many books. It doesn't matter. As much as she tries to do to shift the narrative and change it, everyone knows what she is and who she is. It'll never change. And she also says that God doesn't like her. She said there's something about her that just pisses him off. Yeah, God probably doesn't like demons. He doesn't like demons. That's probably what pisses him off. But she's done 2 interviews. Yeah, she did 2 interviews yesterday, and I watched clips of both those interviews. And one of them, she's asked about Melania's Be Best campaign. And the rotten Reverend Clinton rips Melania and says, well, you know, this is all about bullying. And she says she should look at her, you know, at her her own White House, meaning Trump, about bullying. Yeah, from the rotten Reverend Clinton. Remember, the rotten Reverend Clinton is the one who sicked the mafia thugs and the union thugs on these women who were accusing Bill Clinton of rape, sexual assault, and various other things. Hillary was the one who launched, and they did some really nasty things to these women to scare them to death, not to mention some other things they might have done. Not only that, but she has praised Pelosi Galore's ripping the State of the Union address up. Now, even Democrats came out and said that that was not a good move. I mean, even if you kind of agreed with Pelosi doing it, politically, it was very, very stupid. Very stupid. But again, you're talking about the rotten Reverend Clinton, who, as I've said many times, has the worst political instincts of anyone I've ever seen in the political arena. She has no political instincts. I mean, the whole Pelosi thing already blew up and turned into a big negative factor. Yet she's going to sit there and applaud it. And then she's going to go after the First Lady and talk about, her bullying campaign, which has nothing to do with President Trump. And President Trump's bullying, in a lot of ways, he's bullying foreign countries on our behalf. He's our bully. Yes, he's going to bully China. He's going to bully Russia. Guess what? These players on the world stage, they're bullies. You're playing in a bully schoolyard. You're playing with a bunch of rough and tough people. You can't be a pussy like Obama. You get walked on. How much respect did he get from China? How much respect did he get from Russia? How much respect did he get from the Saudis? How much respect did he get from the Israelis? No respect whatsoever. None. Trump gets respect. They don't like him, but he gets respect. And the other part of what he does is he's having fun. It's just that these are thin-skinned, weaselly people. The rotten Reverend Clinton makes me sick. But I'll tell you one thing. I watched those two interviews. I'm telling you, she is making a move. She's making a move to be the Democratic nominee. As soon as Biden puts Bernie away, and that may happen this Tuesday or the following, as soon as she's got Bernie completely out of the way and she's in the clear, she's going to turn her guns on Biden. She's going to start her phone calls with all her people about, hey, we got to get Biden out of there. He's senile. He's nuts. He's got dementia. He's not going to work. Believe me, the knives will come out for Biden just as soon as she's sure that Bernie is out and she's in the clear. She's working, and she always has been working to be the person to come in to be the nominee in 2020. She made that decision the day after she lost in 2016. She's never backed off. I'm telling you, I watch these interviews. She is campaigning for president, but she's doing it in a typical Clinton way, a very underhanded way. She's sitting in the peanut section throwing Molotov cocktails at everyone else who might be a threat to her. And she's not coming out and endorsing anybody. And there's no reason for her now not to come out and endorse Biden. But she's not. I'm telling you, the rotten Reverend Clinton is positioning herself to come in and snatch the nomination from Burisma Joe. Just watch. Now, the big question is, are they going to continue to have the debates? They have debates scheduled. And they've blown Tulsi out. They're not going to let her be in the debates, which is really a stupid move. They should have let her actually debate. It would give her more camera time, which means less time the camera's on Biden. Because, as much as Biden had a pretty good Super Tuesday, he could have a very, very bad next Super Tuesday. Because if you put him on stage in a debate one-on-one with Bernie, and there's now not going to be 6 people on the stage, there'll just be 2. Which means all that time that Biden's going to have to choke, and he will, and say crazy stuff, and forget where he is and what he's saying in mid-sentence. The thing about that is that Bernie, regardless of what you think about Bernie, he doesn't play a lot of the bullshit. Bernie is an issues guy. Bernie stays focused on the issues. Now, he's wrong on just about every issue, in my opinion, that he talks about, but he stays focused on the issue. He doesn't get sidetracked. He won't bring up scandals. He won't bring up crazy stuff. Bernie will stay focused on issues. And he has a very good command over his mental faculties. Bernie is, he's not senile at all. He's very, very sound of mind at this point. And he's been practicing these talking points, his communist talking points for 30, 40 years. He's got his stuff down, basically. And Biden is a mess. And if you put Biden and Bernie out there, that could definitely shift the next round of Big Tuesday's votes. And there's some big states voting. If Biden melts down, and I think there's a very good chance that that'll happen, things could swing back toward Bernie. So this thing is not quite over. If I'm the Democrats, and if you have a lick of sense in your head, you're going to be canceling any future debates, because the more Biden is out there, the worse he's going to look. And if you want to put Bernie away, don't give him a chance to go one-on-one with Biden on the national stage in a debate with just the two of them, because Bernie will destroy Biden. And I'm sure they're coaching Biden right now, telling him to stay on point and this and that and the other thing, but, I just don't think he's got it. And I don't think Bernie will purposely exploit that. That's not his style. But Trump certainly will, but Bernie won't. But still, there's nothing that the media can do. The media, the best thing that they could do if they want to help Burisma Joe and take out Bernie is to cancel any future debates. Because I can tell you that if Bernie and Biden go through with the next 2 debates that they have scheduled, that could actually, Bernie could take Biden out. If Biden has a really bad gaffe night, and he's certainly capable of doing it, that could draw a lot of questions. It'd make the Democratic Party go, wait a minute. And guess who's still in the race? Tulsi. Warren dropped out. Now, some of these people just suspended their campaigns. They didn't actually end their campaign. They're just suspended. They could unsuspend their campaigns pretty damn quick if Quid Pro Quo Joe comes out and lays an egg. And I think it's very highly likely that he will. But now, Bernie would be so far ahead in delegates that no one could catch him. Biden would have to give his delegates to someone else. And that would only create more controversy and more of a quagmire. It's a mess. This thing is just, I see nothing but ugly, ugly, ugly. And I see bad, worse, and worse and worse bad. It's just, I see no scenario other than total catastrophic disaster coming up, whichever way the ball bounces. No matter where it goes, it ends up off the green, you might say, in the rough. And that's probably why Obama hasn't endorsed Biden. I know it's why the rotten Reverend Clinton hasn't endorsed him, because she is planning on sticking the knives in his back just as soon as the coast is clear and they're sure that Bernie's been taken out. That's when the rotten Reverend Clinton's going to turn on Biden and shove the knives in his back, and Obama probably knows this. But why doesn't Obama want Biden to be the VP? Well, because, to be the president or the nominee. Because he knows that Obama knows that Biden is going to try to go out and run on the 8 years of Obama. And Obama doesn't want Biden representing the 8 years of Obama. That's the last guy that Barack Obama wants doing that. Not to mention, they weren't that great. And Trump will beat the daylights out of Biden if he tries to stand there and take credit and run on the 8 years of Obama-Biden. Trump will just destroy him. And Obama knows it, and he doesn't want to be destroyed by Trump with Biden out there on defense. Now, maybe if Obama thought, well, if I was on stage, I could defend my record. But Trump will just destroy Biden and my record in the process. That's why he doesn't want Biden out there, because Biden's only thing he can run on is, I was Barack's VP. And he's going to try to make himself sound like he was an important part of Obama's administration, when Obama probably had very little to say or do about much of what Obama did. Now, we have some breaking news. We have Mark Meadows has now been named as the new chief of staff. Mulvaney is out. Meadows is in. I hate to lose Meadows in the Congress, but I think he'll do a great job as chief of staff. Very tough job, but I'm glad he's the man. And I don't dislike Mulvaney, but he's made a couple of mistakes, and I think he's pretty used up. That job, you're good for about 3 to 6 months, and you're used up. So, pretty decent job, but I think it is time to make a change, and Mark Meadows is solid. We also have Christopher Steele saying he will not talk to U.S. investigators or John Durham. Yeah? You don't think so? You ever heard of being extradited? Because I'm sure at some point he may be. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.